Have you ever seen a scary story and thought that it was too gruesome to be true? If so, then this is for you. These are 5 stories that have been verified by Snopes.com. Number 5. Hangings gone wrong. Many Halloween parties and shows have displays where one can take a picture of themselves being hanged. The person in the picture usually straps themselves into a harness. This prevents choking. There unfortunately have been recorded cases where these safety devices have failed and things have gone horribly wrong. In October 1990, the Chicago Tribune reported, a teenager who pretended to hang himself from a gallows as part of a pre-Halloween hayride died while performing the stunt. Police said that hayride customers found the body of Brian Jewell, 17, hanging from the gallows, his feet touching the ground. This stunt had worked on other nights and there was no indication of foul play. Prosecutor James Holzapfel said, the gallows was being checked for flaws, and an autopsy was performed. He's supposed to have the noose around his neck, but it's not a noose that tightens, said Holzapfel. Jewell would step down about a foot to the ground, making it appear he had been hanged, Holzapfel said. During the ride, about 40 people are driven around several Halloween fright exhibits. The stunt went off without problems earlier that day, but the tractor driver became concerned later when Jewell failed to give a speech he normally made as the wagon passed. The LA Times reported a similar accident the same month. A 15-year-old staging a gallows scene accidentally hanged himself when the noose somehow tightened, authorities said today. William Anthony Odom of Charlotte, North Carolina, was pronounced dead Friday night amid fake spider webs and plastic bats decorating his aunt's home. Odell and several of his friends had staged a haunted house in the basement. While these 2 examples are unfortunate and tragic, there are other similar hanging instances which can be found and verified with some research. Number 4. A body under the bed. A classic urban legend about Halloween involves a couple checking into a hotel and finding a body under their bed. After staying in the hotel for a while, they eventually discover the body because the odor becomes unignorable. Scholar of folklore Jan Harold Brunvound was able to track the origins of this story to 1991, and every version mentioned a Las Vegas hotel. Despite this, Dr. Brunvound was never able to corroborate any evidence for them. This caused him to believe that the story was simply a legend. Further investigation, however, shows that this urban legend is probably an amalgamation of several actual real events. While it may not be pleasant to think about, corpses being hidden inside and underneath beds in motels are far more common occurrences than one would like to think. Here are just a couple examples that Snopes was able to verify. In Kansas City in 2003, a man checked into a motel and began complaining to management about the odor in his room. They told him that nothing could be done about the problem. After he had exited, the cleaning staff came in and inspected the room. They lifted the mattress. Underneath it, they found a body of a man which was heavily decomposed. A similar case happened in 1998 in New York. The remains of a woman named Mary Jean de Oliveira were found in the Oceanside Motel. As Snopes.com says, at least 2 of the guests unknowingly cohabitated with his corpse before it was found. And at least 1 guest refused to stay in the room because of the smell. While the exact story of Las Vegas and it being a hotel was not corroborated by these cases, they demonstrate that people finding corpses because of the smell underneath beds is not an urban legend, but a gruesome fact. Number 3. Skeletons in Poltergeist. Since the 1982 horror classic Poltergeist was originally shot, there have been many legends surrounding the movie and its creepy backstory. One that reappears over and over again involves human skeletons being used as props. In the movie, Diane Freeling is dragged into her family's swimming pool by a supernatural force identified as the Beast. She is able to escape the Beast's power and reunite with her children, but to get to them she has to fight her way through skeletons, which were buried underneath her home. During an interview which aired on VH1 in 2002, Jo Beth Williams, the actress which played Diane Freeling, stated that the skeletons in the scene were actually real. To many, there's no way that this story could be authentic. It, however, was corroborated by a special effects makeup artist named Craig Reardon in 1982. In a lawsuit filed against Steven Spielberg, he testified that the skeletons were in fact authentic. As he said in his testimony, they were biological surgical skeletons. These are the types of real skeletons which are used in classrooms for study. Number 2. A real dummy. In the mid-1970s, Universal Studios was about to film an episode of The $6 Million Man. They were filming this episode inside of a funhouse. One of the workers moved a hanging man in one of the exhibits. This caused one of the prop's fingers to pop off, and inside of it he found actual human bone. While this sounds like this definitely has to be an urban legend, it is in fact 100% true. This prop was actual no plastic dummy at all, but the body of outlaw Elmer McCurdy. He was a young man who passed in 1911 after a shootout with police officers. After he was embalmed, McCurdy's body was used as a sideshow attraction. The funeral home simply propped him up in the corner and charged people a nickel to see the body. These nickels were dropped into the corpse's mouth and they were later picked up by the Undertaker himself. This lasted for several years because no next of kin showed up to claim his body. In 1915, 2 men showed up and claimed to be his relatives. They stated that they were his brothers and that they would give him a proper burial. In reality, however, these 2 men were not his brothers, but carnival promoters. These men used his body as part of a sideshow attraction throughout Texas. Decades later, and after a long chain of events, this corpse eventually ended up where it was discovered by the set crew of The $6 Million Man. Following this discovery, the body was finally laid to rest in the mid-1970s. Before the burial was finished, the medical examiner ensured that the coffin was encased in concrete to prevent future instances of such a thing happening again. Before we get to our number 1 spot, my name is Starboy and I upload new content every Wednesday and Saturday. As Halloween approaches, this content will focus more and more on the intersection between critical thinking and real-life scary stories. If this sounds like something that interests you, please stay tuned. Number 1. Dead prop. In the distant past, Halloween decorations were very simple, such as jack-o'-lanterns or obviously fake cobwebs. In the last few decades, however, Halloween decorators have really stepped up their game. Many decorations are gruesome, horrifying, and very realistic looking. While this has made Halloween decorations much more fun and entertaining, it has also led to one unfortunate consequence. Many actual tragedies and deaths are mistaken for Halloween decorations if they happen around the time of the holiday. One such instance happened in 2005. The corpse of a 42-year-old woman was wrongly mistaken for Halloween decorations and was left suspended for hours in Delaware. Her body was suspended 15 feet above the ground. This made it easy to view for anyone driving or walking by. The police department said that locals had indeed noticed it. Given what time of the year it was, however, they simply dismissed it at first as a Halloween prank. Another such story happened in October of 2009. While it took several days for the neighbors to notice that it in fact was a body, a 75-year-old suicide victim sat undisturbed on a balcony in California. This body was simply assumed to be part of a Halloween display. Mustafa Zaid, who the body belonged to, committed suicide by gunshot, and the body had sat on the balcony for several days. This was because he had sat slumped over in a chair on the third-floor balcony. This gave it the appearance of a Halloween decoration. As the aforementioned case of bodies found in mattresses, actual victims being mistaken for Halloween decorations is actually more common than one would like to think it would be. With that said, this concludes this top 5. If you like this and would like to hear more gruesome fact-based Halloween lists, then stay tuned. As Halloween approaches, I'll be uploading more and more spooky content. Until then, thanks for listening and stay skeptical.